a night of truth. Planning our anniversary dinner had taken weeks of meticulous preparation. I had carefully chosen her favorite restaurant, ensuring every detail was perfect. But Olivia had often reminisced about the table by the window, the one with the breathtaking view of the city skyline. Reserved since our third anniversary, I had gone the extra mile, even arranging for the waiter to bring out a bottle of wine wrapped with a ribbon, a subtle yet meaningful touch. As we sat there, everything seemed just right. Olivia's familiar smile, the one that once lit up my world, returned as she admired her favorite vintage place in front of her. For the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to believe that we could push past the distance that had crept between us. I had even chosen a special gift, a delicate necklace with a small pendant engraved with our wedding date. My speech was ready. I planned to remind her of everything we had built together, hoping this night would reignite the warmth we had lost and erase the lingering coldness. But what I hadn't foreseen, what I could have never anticipated, was that Olivia had a speech of her own. Just as the waiter arrived with our wine, she leaned forward, raised her glass for a toast, and with an unsettling calmness, she spoke. "I've been cheating on you for 2 years." Her voice was steady, devoid of emotion. For a moment, the world around me shifted. The wine glass in my hand suddenly felt weightless, as if suspended in midair. I waited, hoped, for some indication that this was a cruel joke, an ill-timed test of my patience. But her eyes, sharp and unwavering, told me otherwise. The way her words settled in the air, thick and suffocating. Betrayal, anger, humiliation, they all crashed into me at once. But instead of allowing those emotions to consume me, I did something that even took me by surprise. I smiled, raising my glass with composed ease. I met her gaze. "To your new life," I said, my voice unwavering. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face, her brow creasing as if my reaction had thrown her off balance. This wasn't what she had expected. No anger, no pleading, no accusations. Just quiet acceptance. Taking a slow sip of wine, I leaned back in my chair. "Does he make you happy?" I asked. She shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting away. "It's complicated," she murmured. And in that moment, I understood. She wasn't sure. She had convinced herself that she was walking away from predictability, from a life that had become too ordinary. But now, faced with my unexpected composure, she was beginning to question it. The server arrived, oblivious to the emotional wreckage unraveling at our table. He handed us the dessert menus, his cheerful demeanor a stark contrast to the tension between us. Olivia barely acknowledged him, but I casually glanced at the menu and said, "I'll take a look." Then, turning to her, I added, "You should try the creme brulee." She stared at me, disbelief etched into her expression. "How can you pretend this isn't a big deal?" Setting the menu down, I met her gaze. "You made your choice, Olivia. There's no point in me falling apart over it." It wasn't entirely true, of course. Inside, it felt as though my chest was being ripped open, but I refused to let her see that. When dessert arrived, I excused myself and stepped outside. The crisp night air helped clear the storm in my mind. Taking a deep breath, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and made a call. It had been years since I last needed my lawyer. Tonight I did. The turning point. Nathan, my attorney, answered almost immediately. He didn't ask for details. He didn't need to. His response was simple and direct. "Send me everything you have. We'll meet first thing in the morning." Ending the call, I dialed Alan, the private investigator I had hired months ago. Ever since Olivia's late-night disappearances and secret behavior began raising red flags, I had suspected the worst, but suspicions weren't enough. I needed proof before confronting her, and Alan had delivered more than enough. Photographs, surveillance footage, hotel receipts, even recorded conversations. Olivia believed she had the upper hand. She thought she was in control. What she didn't realize was that I had been 10 steps ahead the entire time. When I returned to the table, she was casually scrolling through her phone, as if nothing had happened. "How are you planning to explain this to the kids?" I asked. Her head snapped up, and for the first time that evening, uncertainty flickered in her expression. "I'll figure out," she muttered. I raised an eyebrow. You'll figure it out? She scowled. You don't have to make this harder than it already is. A quiet chuckle escaped me as I shook my head. Harder for who, Olivia? The waiter returned, oblivious to the storm raging between us. Olivia declined dessert again, but I ordered another coffee. I wasn't in a hurry to leave. As I sipped, my mind drifted back over the past few months. The unexplained absences, the whispered phone calls, the way she recoiled from my touch. At first, I told myself it was just a rough patch, something every couple goes through. But deep down, I had known better. That's why I hired Alan. It had been one of the hardest decisions of my life, letting someone else confirm what I was too afraid to admit. But the moment I saw the photos of Olivia laughing with another man at a cafe before disappearing into a hotel with him, I knew I had made the right choice. I had gathered all the evidence. And yet, here she sat, still pretending she was the one in control. "Why aren't you mad?" she asked suddenly. "Why aren't you yelling?" I set my cup down, meeting her gaze with steady composure. "You've already made your choice, Olivia. Losing my temper won't change that." She blinked, taken aback. I didn't expect you to act like this." A faint smile tugged at the corner of my lips. "You thought I'd break down? Beg you to stay?" Her silence was answer enough. The truth was, I had already broken, months ago, when I first discovered the affair. I had spent sleepless nights drowning in self-doubt, wondering where I went wrong. But now, something had shifted. The pain was still there, but it was no longer consuming. What I felt now was something else entirely. Clarity. The waiter arrived with the check. Olivia instinctively reached for her purse, but I stopped her. "This one's on me." She frowned, wary. "You don't have to be so generous." I let out a low chuckle. For someone who just admitted to cheating, that's a bold statement. Her cheeks darkened with embarrassment as she turned away. I signed the receipt, then gave her one last look. "You've given me a lot to think about tonight," I said, my voice almost casual. She glanced up at me, searching my expression, but I didn't wait for a reply. Standing, I slipped on my jacket, stepped outside, and made one final call. "Alan," I said when he picked up. "Yeah." "Send me everything. Photos, videos, recordings. I want them all ready to go." "You got it." Hanging up, I took a deep breath, staring at the restaurant's glowing sign. Olivia believed she had won. She had no idea the real game had just begun. The night air was crisp as I walked away, the restaurant door swinging shut behind me. I didn't turn back to see if Olivia was still sitting there. Maybe, for the first time in a long while, I didn't need to. The reckoning. For the first time in months, I wasn't the one left piecing everything together. The upper hand had always been mine. I wasn't about to relinquish it now. I took a few steps before pulling out my phone. Calling Alan, my private investigator, had become second nature by this point. The moment he answered, I spoke with quiet finality. "It's time." Without hesitation, he replied, "I'll send everything to both of them before the night is over. It'll be in their inboxes, and I'll make it public." There was a brief silence before I added, "Stay firm, but unwavering. The people closest to us deserve to know the truth." "You're sure about this?" he asked. I exhaled slowly, my voice unwavering. I've never been more certain of anything. By the time I arrived home, my thoughts were racing, yet an odd sense of calm settled over me. The wheels had been set in motion. There was no stopping them now. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, sat at the kitchen table, and waited. It didn't take long. My phone began vibrating relentlessly. Emails, messages, calls. The flood of notifications was endless, but I ignored them. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged into the anonymous account Alan, and I had created weeks prior. There was, laid bare for all to see, screenshots of messages, photos, detailed records of Olivia's affair with David, every deception, every betrayal, compiled into a damning collection of evidence. The post spread like wildfire. Within minutes, the view count soared as friends, family, and acquaintances reacted. Some were in shock, others disgusted. A few, predictably, scrambled to defend her. But the overwhelming consensus was clear. Olivia had crossed a line, and there was no undoing it. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, her name lit up the screen. I let it ring. She called again. And again. Finally, I answered. Her voice was frantic. "What the hell did you do, Marcus? Why would you do this?" Leaning back in my chair, I kept my tone cool, controlled. "Why wouldn't I? Did you really think you could destroy our marriage in secret for 2 years and walk away without consequences?" "This is cruel," she shot back. "You're trying to ruin me." I exhaled slowly. "You ruined yourself, Olivia. I'm just making sure no one is left in the dark." Silence stretched between us, punctuated only by ragged breathing. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter. "What do you want from me?" I set my drink down, my patience long gone. I wanted a partner I could trust, someone who valued the life we built. But since you made it clear that wasn't you, all I want now is for you to take responsibility for what you've done. The fallout. By the following morning, the consequences of her choices came crashing down. Friends exchanged calls, their voices thick with shock and disappointment. Some severed ties with her completely. David didn't escape unscathed either. His prestigious law firm wasted no time. He was placed on indefinite leave, his carefully crafted reputation shattered in a matter of hours. Years of effort gone in an instant. Olivia fought to salvage what she could, reaching out to family and mutual friends, pleading her case. But the evidence was undeniable. The harder she tried to justify herself, the worse it looked. A few days later, I got an unexpected call. "David." I nearly let go to voicemail, but curiosity won out. His voice was hollow, almost defeated. "Why did you do it?" I said nothing. He sighed. "Why air everything out like this?" I answered without hesitation. "Because you needed to know what it feels like." A sharp inhale on the other end. Then silence. When he finally spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I never meant for this to happen." A humorless laugh escaped me. "The thing about choices, David, they come with consequences, whether you meant for them or not." By the end of the week, Olivia showed up at the house.